Beverly Hills, the Grand View Hotel, February 14th, 2019. Ozzy Osbourne was sitting in a leather armchair in the corner of the lobby, waiting for Sharon. It was an ordinary evening, or at least it seemed that way. But what was about to unfold over the next 23 minutes would make it impossible for Ozzy to stay in that seat. And the reason was the woman who had just walked through the hotel's revolving door. Her platinum blonde hair, the jewelry draped over her, and the icy aura she radiated made it clear that this was no ordinary guest. As she marched toward the reception desk, her footsteps carried the warning signs of an approaching storm. And the target of that storm would be 62-year-old receptionist Harold Chen. That morning, Harold had told his wife as he left the house, "I'll be home early tonight. We'll celebrate our anniversary." He had no idea that within an hour he would be accused of theft. The Grand View was one of Hollywood's most expensive hotels. The cheapest room cost $1,200 a night, while the presidential suite ran $15,000. This was a world where ordinary people only glanced through the door as they walked past, while the wealthy felt right at home. And Harold Chen had been the invisible bridge between these two worlds for exactly 30 years. He was the son of a family who had immigrated from Taiwan. His father had run a small laundromat in Los Angeles. Harold had started at the Grand View as a bellboy at 32, and through his dedication and courtesy, had risen to the position of head receptionist over the years. In 30 years, he had never received a single complaint. In the notebook he carried in his pocket were the names, room preferences, and special requests of 847 regular guests. He knew that Mr. Thompson's room should never have orchids because of his allergies, or that Mrs. Goldstein wanted a mint candy under her pillow with every visit. For Harold, this job wasn't just a profession, it was an art. At 7:52 p.m., Victoria Ashford glided through the lobby doors. She was 55 years old, her platinum blonde hair pulled into a perfect bun, wearing at least $50,000 worth of jewelry. Her Chanel suit, Hermes bag, and Jimmy Choo heels announced that she was one of the Grand View's platinum members. This status, reserved for guests who spent at least $200,000 a year, granted her nearly unlimited privileges at the hotel. Victoria was the heiress to one of California's largest real estate companies and had never heard the word no in her entire life. She had no intention of hearing it tonight either. As she approached the reception desk with fury in her eyes, Harold greeted her with his usual warm smile. But Victoria slammed her hand on the desk and announced that her diamond ring was missing. She claimed she had left it on the nightstand in room 412 the night before. When she woke up in the morning, the ring was gone, and she had only one explanation. Someone on the hotel staff had stolen it. Harold tried to handle the situation with professional composure. He assured her that the security footage would be reviewed, all staff would be questioned, and the ring would certainly be found. But Victoria wasn't listening. Her voice grew louder by the second, and other guests in the lobby were beginning to turn their heads uncomfortably. No one could stand up to Victoria Ashford. No one could argue with her, and no one, absolutely no one, could convince her that she was wrong. Harold knew all of this, but he still tried to remain calm. What he didn't know yet was that he himself was Victoria's real target. Victoria took another step closer and pointed her finger directly at Harold's face. The venom in her voice spread to every corner of the lobby. "Who entered my room last night?" she demanded. Harold explained that only housekeeping staff had entered, and that this was standard procedure. Victoria's eyes narrowed. "What about you?" she said. "You were on duty last night, weren't you? I know you can access my room with a master key." Harold's heart stopped for a moment. In 30 years, he had never entered a guest's room without permission. The very thought was unimaginable to him. But Victoria's accusation was clear, and the people around them had heard it. Harold began to stammer. "No, never, I only—" But Victoria wasn't even listening. She had pulled out her phone and was calling the hotel manager. And in that moment, Harold Chen's 30-year reputation stood on the edge of collapse because of one woman's baseless accusation. People in the lobby were whispering. Some had taken out their phones, and not a single person, not one, was standing by Harold's side. It was at that exact moment that a figure slowly rose from the leather armchair in the darkest corner of the lobby. With his long brown hair, dark sunglasses, and black leather jacket, he didn't fit the Grandview's typical guest profile at all. The reason he was there was actually quite ordinary. He was waiting to meet Sharon. His wife was upstairs in a business meeting, and Ozzie had preferred to sit quietly in the lobby and watch people. For the past hour, no one had noticed him, or perhaps they had noticed and chosen not to disturb him. Seeing celebrities in Beverly Hills was so common that people usually preferred to remain indifferent. But Ozzie had been watching what was unfolding for the last 5 minutes. He had heard every word Victoria said. He had seen the fear and shame on Harold's face, and inside him, an anger he hadn't felt in a long time was rising. Because Ozzy Osbourne was no stranger to scenes where the arrogant crushed the innocent. He had grown up on the poor streets of Birmingham. He had never forgotten the days when people looked at him as that poor kid. And now, in this glamorous lobby, he was watching a different version of the same story. Ozzie began walking slowly toward the reception desk. His steps were deliberately heavy, as if he were stepping onto a stage. The slight tremor that came with age added a strange rhythm to his walk, but it didn't stop him. Victoria was still on the phone, yelling at the hotel manager. Harold stood with his head bowed and his hands clasped in front of him, like a sailor waiting for a storm to pass. Ozzie stopped right beside Victoria. She didn't even notice him. Ozzie coughed, deliberately, loudly. Victoria finally turned her head and saw a man in a black leather jacket with messy hair and sunglasses. She wrinkled her face as if she had caught a bad smell. "Do you want something?" she said coldly. Ozzie slowly removed his sunglasses and looked at Victoria with those famous blue eyes. The expression on Victoria's face didn't change. She hadn't recognized him. Or perhaps she had and simply didn't care. But Harold had recognized him. At least 10 other people in the lobby had recognized him. The Prince of Darkness was standing in front of a reception desk, and the look on his face was anything but friendly. Ozzie began to speak in that familiar Birmingham accent. "Excuse me, ma'am. I've been sitting here for the last 5 minutes, and I noticed something interesting. This gentleman is trying to help you, and you're accusing him of theft." Victoria's eyes narrowed. "This is none of your business," she said. Ozzie smiled slightly, but there was no warmth in his smile. "Normally you'd be right," he said. "I don't interfere in other people's affairs. But you see, I was once on the receiving end of accusations myself. People passed judgment on someone they didn't even know, and those people, just like you, seemed very sure of themselves." Victoria paused for a moment. Whoever this man was, she had encountered unexpected resistance. "Who are you?" she said. "And why are you involving yourself in this conversation?" Ozzie pulled his hotel key from his pocket and placed it on the desk. It was the key to the presidential suite, the $15,000 room. Victoria's eyes went to the key, then to Ozzie, then back to the key. And in that moment, for the first time, uncertainty appeared on her face. But Ozzie was just getting started, and what he was about to say would be the most jarring words Victoria Ashford had ever heard in her life. 30 years of stage experience had taught him one thing. Once you start, you have to see it through to the end. "Ma'am," he said in a calm but sharp voice, "you don't know this man. I don't know him either. But I do know this. Accusing someone of theft can destroy their life, especially when you have no proof." Victoria's jaw tightened. "My ring is missing," she said. "A $75,000 Cartier ring. And this man was on duty last night." Ozzie nodded. "I understand," he said. "You've lost something valuable and you're angry. But being angry isn't a good enough reason to accuse an innocent person." Victoria took a step back. "Who do you think you are to lecture me about morals?" she said. Ozzie shrugged. "Me? I'm just an old rock and roll singer from Birmingham. But I've learned this. No matter how rich a person is, injustice is still injustice." These words echoed through the lobby. Whispers rose, and several more people pulled out their phones. and Victoria Ashford, for the first time in her life, felt cornered in front of a crowd. But the real surprise was yet to come. At that moment, the elevator doors opened and hotel manager Robert Castellano strode quickly into the lobby. He was in his 50s, grey-haired, wearing an expensive suit. His face carried a mixture of concern and a professional smile. "Mrs. Ashford," he said breathlessly. "I'm so sorry I came right away." Then he noticed Ozzie and paused for a moment. "Mr. Osbourne?" he said with surprise. "Seeing you here, is there a problem?" Victoria's face turned pale white. "Osbourne," she whispered. "Ozzy Osbourne." Ozzie smiled slightly. "Yeah, that was me last time I checked," he said. "But that's not what's important right now. What's important is that this lady is accusing your staff of theft, and I think you need to take a look at the security footage." Victoria's lips trembled. My ring was missing and—" Robert Castellano quickly tried to take control of the situation. "Of course, Mr. Osbourne," he said. "Let's review the footage immediately. Harold, would you come with me?" Harold lifted his head. "Yes, sir," he said in a low voice. But at that very moment, Ozzie noticed something. The zipper on Victoria's Hermes bag was half open, and a familiar glint was reflecting from inside. Ozzie took a step towards the bag. "Excuse me," he said, "but something's sparkling inside your bag." Victoria instinctively clutched her bag. "What? What do you mean?" Ozzie remained calm. "Just take a look," he said. "Maybe what you're looking for isn't as far away as you think." Victoria, trembling, opened her bag. She reached her hand inside and froze. Between her fingers sat the $75,000 Cartier ring. The lobby fell completely silent. Victoria looked at the ring, then at Harold, then at Ozzie. Her face had turned bright red. I, she stammered. "I don't understand. I left it on the nightstand last night. How could it be in my bag?" Ozzie put his sunglasses back on. "I don't know, Mum," he said. "Maybe you picked it up without realizing while you were packing in a hurry this morning. What matters is that your ring has been found, and this man nearly lost his 30-year career because of your moment of panic." These words poured over Victoria like a bucket of ice water. She looked around. At least 40 people were watching her. Phones were still in the air, and all of them had just witnessed her accuse an innocent man of theft. Victoria's eyes filled with tears. This was a kind of shame she had never experienced in her life. The kind of shame that her money, her status, and her power couldn't protect her from. She turned to Harold, her voice trembling. I'm sorry," she said. "I'm truly sorry. I panicked and I spoke without thinking." Harold was silent for a moment. In 30 years, he had dealt with every kind of guest. The arrogant, the rude, the difficult. He had smiled at all of them, shown patience to all of them, but none of them had wounded him this deeply. "It's all right, Mom," he finally said. "I'm glad you found your ring." But his voice was broken, and everyone could hear it. Victoria pulled a card from her wallet. "I want to make it up to you somehow," she said. "Please, whatever you want." Harold shook his head. "Thank you," he said. "But what I need isn't money. I just want to do my job." These words shook Victoria for a second time. Her money had been refused. For the first time in her life, she was face to face with something she couldn't buy. True dignity. Ozzie approached Harold and placed his hand on his shoulder. "Mate," he said in that Birmingham accent, "you've had a really tough day today, but I want you to know you were definitely not the one in the wrong." Harold's eyes filled with tears. 30 years, he said in a low voice. "I've been working here for 30 years, never once." "I know," Ozzie said, "and everyone knows. One person's baseless accusation can't erase 30 years of honesty." At that moment, Robert Castellano stepped in. "Mr. Osbourne," he said, "please let us cover dinner for you and your wife tonight. At the very least." Ozzie waved his hand. "Thanks, mate, but there's no need," he said. "But I do have a suggestion. How about letting Harold take tomorrow off? He's been through quite a bit of stress today." Castellano nodded immediately. Of course. Harold, you have tomorrow off, paid. And you'll be receiving a bonus this month for your loyalty to the hotel. Harold looked at him in surprise. But sir, I didn't do anything. Castellano cut him off. That's exactly why, Harold. You didn't do anything wrong, and yet you were accused. We need to make this right. Ozzie pulled a small card from his pocket and handed it to Harold. Mate, he said, this is my assistant's number. Give her a call tomorrow. She'll arrange a dinner for you and your wife, on me. Harold looked at the card. Mr. Osbourne, he said, his voice trembling. I don't deserve this. I'm just... Ozzie shook his head. No, he said. You've served people for 30 years, and today, in just a minute, everyone turned their back on you. But I want you to know, there are still people in this world who see you. Harold's tears could no longer be held back. Even some people in the lobby were wiping their eyes. At that moment, the elevator doors opened again, and Sharon Osbourne stepped out. When she saw the scene in the lobby, she raised her eyebrows. Ozzie? She said. I was upstairs in a meeting for 1 hour. What did you do? Ozzie shrugged. Nothing, he said with an innocent expression. I just sat and watched people. Sharon looked at her husband for a long moment. Then she saw Harold's tears, Victoria's shame, the tension in the lobby. I could swear you've been up to something, she said. Ozzie smiled slightly. Me? Never. A few days later, Harold had dinner with his wife at the restaurant Ozzie's assistant had arranged. On their table was a note. For 30 years of honesty, the world needs people like you. O.O. Harold still carries that note in his wallet. And on every difficult day he remembers that night. The night a rock legend stood up for an ordinary receptionist. As for Victoria Ashford, that night became a turning point for her as well. A week later she returned to the Grandview. But this time, not to confront Harold. She had a letter in her hand, a 3-page apology letter, handwritten. And alongside the letter, a $500 gift certificate to a Taiwanese restaurant that Harold's wife May loved. Victoria's eyes were moist as she handed the letter to Harold. I went home that night and thought, she said, I thought about how I've treated people my whole life, and I was ashamed, truly ashamed. Harold took the letter. You didn't have to do this, he said. Victoria nodded. No, she said. I had to, because that man was right. Being angry isn't a good enough reason to accuse an innocent person. And I've been angry my whole life. I've looked down on people. I thought I was better than everyone. But that night, a rock singer held up a mirror to me, and I didn't like what I saw. Harold smiled. People can change, he said. What matters is realizing it. Victoria nodded. Yes, she said. And sometimes to realize it, you need the courage of a stranger.